Slash, 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 slash. It was a completely different fighting sword style that had never been seen before in the Milky Way alliance. The frenzied blade brought a wave of heat, attacking furiously. Each stroke seemed to gather up the surrounding air into it. She pressed forward relentlessly, catching him mentally unprepared. Lai's raging wildfire 18 cleaves. One stroke bore down after another. Lai Xin's level had suddenly risen 2 ranks. And she was capitalizing on the only opening that her opponent thought would bring him the advantage, that in the instant the energy shield broke, the opponent would have just executed a furious attack and would need a breather. In the same moment, her shield breaking would free up the agility of her mech. It was the perfect opportunity for a counterattack. Lai Xin was a woman, so she was far more calm than men. Priest Tang's underestimation showed in his moves, and she had used that against him instead. The Berserk 18 cleaves shook the entire arena. The intense inferno diffused through the mech to cook the pilot alive. If it was not for Priest Tang's innate strength ability, he would have lost all ability to fight. Boom! The fallen angel's energy shield failed, but Lai Xin's killer advance showed no signs of stopping, the fiery blade cutting down with full strength. Boom! The beam saber defended as best as it could, but following the explosion, it was sent flying. The fallen angel was stranded in the energy force field wall, sparks flying. The mech fell to the floor, broken. This was Lai Xin's real move. The fallen angel mech's beam hummed into darkness. Solar System Team, win. Lai Xin had taken the first round in an earth-shattering fashion. Lai Guang was the first to jump up. His sister was too cool. Lai Xin was also sweating profusely as she came down. She had really exerted herself. If she had not strategized well and used her ace from the start, she might have been countered by her opponent. She had leapt at the opportunity that underestimation provided. An unbelievably sexy Amazon dripping with sweat, she was truly a beguiling figure. Yet the cheers were for her deeds alone. Lucky not to have let us down, Wang Zheng smiled. I knew you would win. The Solar System team were up 1-0, and had seized the advantage. Priest Tang had been rescued from the mech by troopers. He seemed unharmed, but shook his head in regret and disbelief. What kind of ability X was this? Inferno ability? That couldn't be right. If it was Inferno ability, then why did he feel that her strength and speed had been raised as well? And what kind of never-before-seen sword style did she use, such that he could not even defend himself? Everyone was afire with curious discussion, and the Silver Snake team was even more affected. Wang Zheng could sense the shift in Lai Xin's demeanor, that she had become exuberant. Was this the Lai family's Lai Flame technique? It was a fabled power, and seemed to be really powerful. Lai Xin spotted Wang Zheng zoning out in her direction, and smiled charmingly. What, are you bedazzled by my heroic stature? Wang Zheng recovered. No man could ever resist you. Actually, he was thinking about other matters. The Lai Flame technique was apparently some otherworldly response drawing strength from one's own body. It was similar to Ability X, yet slightly different. If this had not been the Lai family's secret, Wang Zheng would have really wanted to ask more. He was too ignorant in such matters. It was the Solar System team's turn to send out their challenger first, in the second round. Although they were the underdogs, not a single member gave off that impression. As Wang Zheng's gaze swept through them, each met his, eager to fight. Zhang Shan was raring to go. Mech battles were his forte. His displacement ability, used right, could finish off any opponent, and he was confident in pulling it off. But Wang Zheng's gaze passed him. Lai Guang desperately craned his neck. Lai Xin's performance with the Lai Flame technique was perfect. This was the time when power was the most important determiner, and direct battles were undoubtedly the best way forward. But Wang Zheng was not keen on him either. Having taken the lead, everyone was more or less eager to go, besides Lear and Achilles, who were calm as ever. However, the decision rested with Wang Zheng, and everybody's gazes were mostly directed at either Lear or Achilles. In terms of power, either of them stood the best chance of securing the next win. Since they had already entered the official contest, every match was important, and they could not afford to be as casual as before. The time for training was over. At this moment, one in the crowd was keeping his head down desperately, as though afraid of being called by Wang Zheng. Wang Zheng pointed at the cowering fatty Luo. Luo Fei, for the second round, you will go. Luo Fei pointed at himself, mouth agape. Captain, this is such a crucial match, are you? Wang Jung nodded. That's right. You go. Fatty stood up begrudgingly. The opponents now were of a completely different class from before. There were so many skilled people around, what did Wang Jung have against him? Luo Fei gritted his teeth, and walked towards the mech selection screen. His finger slid over the screen, and he began to choose his mech. Correspondingly, the large spectator screen was already displaying Luo Fei's profile, showing, Solar System Team Luo Fei vs Silver Snake Coalition Team. Among the Solar System spectator representatives, Lai Wuqing, who had been gratified at Lai Xin's first win, suddenly found his smile frozen on his face. Dramok frowned. They had expected that either Lear or Achilles would be sent to decisively secure the second match. The Silver Snake team was no fodder. Whether in their past matchups or current strength, they stood above the Solar System by a clear margin. Their first win did not count for much. Meng Ao did not respond. If he had doubts before, they had vanished after he had seen Wang Jung's true strength. Wang Jung now had his own judgment and principles. Regardless of right or wrong, he did not need external interference. This came from towering self-confidence, a world that the others did not understand. On the spectator platform, other countries' spectator representatives had shown up as well, probably to collect information. The Elite Three in the Solar System, Lear, Achilles, and Lai Xin, were said to be of roughly the same level, while this Wang Jung was a surprise showing in the Solar System team. Lai Xin had secured the first point through a display of the Lai fiery strength. Everybody saw clearly the true strength of the Solar System's Elite Three. The Silver Snake team's Priest Tang's level was considerable, but he had still been defeated. Yet, everybody now clearly saw Lai Xin's limits. She must have brought at least 90% to bear. From this, they could roughly gauge the strength of the others. Honestly, these people were a little puzzled. Why did they have to come to observe this? Although they were not bad, this was roughly top 32 standard at best. Against a truly strong team, they were of no threat. Kiki, is this the defensive move after taking the lead? When they send first, they send a replacement that they don't mind losing. When the opponent sends first, they send their strongest counter. The idea is not wrong when both sides are evenly matched. Against the Silver Snake team, this is playing with fire, and they should be careful not to burn themselves. It seemed like the Silver Snake team supporters on the platform constituted the majority. Although the Solar System had won a little fame for themselves in this iteration, the Silver Snake Coalition had made it as far as the top 8 before, and were full of talent in this iteration as well. Kong Zhan, especially, received one of the most calls to enter the top 10 newcomers. While top 4 might have been a bit of a long shot, top 8 was definitely within reach. Kong Zhan's expression was pensive, clearly thinking. This left the members a little baffled. Kong Zhan, who had been so swift and decisive, what had gotten into him recently? Luo Fei, the little fatty, gave people a poor impression. Clearly the fat characteristic was easy to remember, but also easy to dismiss. Kong Zhan's stare swiveled towards Fatty Luo, then traced to the only female fighter in his team. Qi Yan, you go then. Be careful. Qi Yan started, then happily stood up, nodding frantically. Ever since the competition started, she had not had the chance to fight. Finally, the leader had recognized her efforts and had given her the chance. Ping, on the big screen, the finalized battle was displayed. This time, it was accompanied by the two competitors' pictures. Solar System Team Luo Fei vs Silver Snake Coalition Qi Yan. On one side was Fatty's half-body shot, on the other was Qi Yan's figure shot in armor. Many of the younger representatives blew jeering whistles. Luo Fei's figure was too unsoldier-like. But speaking of figures, Qi Yan's chest was still bigger than his by far. Luo Fei had seen her as well. A sexy diva. However, Luo Fei's gaze readily focused. IG did not differentiate between the sexes. He sat in the mech and breathed deeply, calming himself down. Fatty had chosen the Avalon Land Fighter 2 mech, proudly produced by the Moon. A scout type that mainly focused on offense. The double engines under light armor gave the Avalon 2 considerable explosive power. This was one of the mecha that Luo Fei had trained the most with. Qi Yan's mech was also delivered readily through the underground tunnel, and rose from the opening. A wave of pressure perceptibly rose. Titan V. This was the Silver Snake Coalition's super mech. The defensive capabilities were astounding, and it simultaneously boasted considerable attack power. It was most suited for taking down sudden attack type scout mecha. This was an outpick. Clearly she had guessed that Luo Fei would choose a scout type mech. Both parties stepped into the battle zone. Vroom, Luo Fei immediately leapt into action. At the same instant, the Titan V gunned its engines as well. The Titan V's size was 1.5 times that of the Avalon 2, and its firepower was a threat as well. At this time, it showed off its firepower generously, firing wildly. Luo Fei's stealth specialty was apparently ineffective in the mech. All he could do was tough it out, dodging constantly. What he could not dodge, he had to take with his energy shields, and he conserved every bit of energy he could. Braving the heavy hailstorm of bullets, the Avalon 2 continued rushing towards the Titan V. It would soon enter close combat range. When it did, the Titan's heavy firepower would lose its ability to shine. Qi Yan's gaze was cold. She had chosen the Titan V not just for its heavy firepower. Clearly, at this level of IG, a Titan V's firepower could not possibly achieve a co-result. Whoosh. Huge volumes of white vapor suddenly began to gush from the Titan V's back. This concurrently cooled its gunnery system. A huge, curved knife was unsheathed, and it cleaved towards the Avalon 2. Boom! A violent slash, speedy and accurate, and backed with fearsome power was unleashed. Dong! The Avalon lifted its titanium blade to block, and the entire mech was sent flying. In the preparation area of the solar system T, Lai Shin's eyes flashed. Material manipulation is a rare ability X. I didn't think it could be useful in battle. The Titan V was a heavy mech among heavy mecha. Even a strength-type ability X strongman would be hard-pressed to pilot it in close combat. In most situations, the heavy firepower of the Titan V would be used for both attack and defense. But Qi Yan's material manipulation could utilize the full potential of the Titan V through G material feedback. Even without a strength-type ability X user, the Titan V's innate power was sufficient. Even without speed, material manipulation could enable the Titan V to execute the perfect attack at the most opportune moment. From the looks of it, it could sustain for 5 seconds or so, although she might have been holding back. Under these circumstances, Fatty's situation did not look good. Boom boom boom, the heavy gunnery system, under the control of material manipulation, had finished cooling, and was armed within a second. It aimed directly at the Avalon 2 and fired. Ping 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 ping. Although Fatty tried his best to avoid them, he could not break free from the opponent's arc of fire. Furthermore, the Titan mech was advancing step by step. It almost felt like a game of cat and mouse. The continuous hits would soon break his energy shield. Qi Yan was even more direct, lashing out punishingly. The cleaver bore down, finishing it. This was no mock battle. The knife's gleam grew larger in Fatty's field of view. The platform was silent. Everybody could see that the Titan V firmly held the upper hand. Its energy shield was still full. The solar system has been amusing. It's about time to surrender. Kiki, Qi Yan is indeed not bad. Material manipulation was originally only a repairing type ability. To think that she would use it to wield a heavy type mech. Controlling a heavy type mech had always been unwieldy because its rhythm was difficult for pilot operation to follow, and the theoretical speed limit was never reached. Not everybody could do it either. Material manipulation abilities often only work on small objects. Mech application was devised by Qi Yan herself, and she's been through her fair share of failures. The Silver Snake Coalition team allowed themselves smiles. It was apparent that this match was in the bag. The solar system had sent out Fatty as a free point. Lear's expression was still sour. In battles at this level, Lear was still confident. Wang Zheng was of the same mind on this point. Although Fatty had been sniveling, his abilities were undisputable. Wang Zheng had no intention of training soldiers, but aimed to decisively take the battle. Luo Fei smelled something. Death. He would die. He really would die. This was a real execution, with no room for retreat. Live or die. Boom! A cluster of fiery light leapt from Luo Fei's eyes. It was no reflection, his eyes were actually glowing. Qi Yan intended to end it. She had no doubts, and was aiming to blow him up promptly. This was war. Furthermore, she was even more careful towards the finish, eyeing the Avalon Eye's every move. She would not make the same mistake as Priest Tang, and would cut them no slack. The huge cleaver was only about 10 centimeters away from the Avalon too. But at this moment, the Titan mech's movements suddenly stopped. The Avalon 2 gunned its engines, the titanium blade sweeping aside the cleaver. It shifted its position and began to execute a combination of attacks towards the Titan mech. The scout's speed was brought to bear, and all Qi Yan could do was engage her energy shield. Weakening ability X for a full 3 or 4 seconds, Qi Yan felt her body go weak, and the Titan mech's energy shield was also cut to pieces by the relentless attacks of her opponent. In the moment of life and death, Qi Yan demonstrated a cruel determination beyond most men. Faced with Luo Fei's attack, she purposely let it cut into her left shoulder and used the Titan mech's left arm to capture the Avalon's titanium blade. The huge cleaver swept towards the Avalon mech. The Avalon mech suddenly lowered its head, a sharp blade emerging from the head. The titanium blade followed the cut, sliding downwards. The engines gunned with enough power to slice the opponent's cockpit open. Qi Yan had a look of terror, overwhelmed by the intensity of the situation and the piercing alarm warning in her ear. Fatty saw it too. Just one more second. Inexplicably, the titanium blade actually paused at the crucial moment, and the Titan mech's foot lashed out punishingly, an instinctive move by Qi Yan that used all her strength. Boom! The Avalon mech was sent flying like a toy, flying over 10 meters, sparks flying. For a scout mech to be kicked thus by a heavy mech, one almost feared that his brain fluids had been spattered. Nobody had expected the turns of this battle. Qi Yan breathed a huge sigh of relief, staring at the disabled Avalon mech, gaping. Fatty panicked. Although that blow had scrambled his insides, his strength was in endurance, and his additional layer of meat was another layer of defense. Picturing Lear's disapproving face, he frantically piloted his mech, but the mech only made a few chittering sounds and collapsed. Round 2, Silver Snake Team win. The Silver Snake Team leapt up as one, their limbs flailing wildly in celebration. Although Qi Yan's ability was not considered to be the strongest, and they did not understand why their leader had chose her, it was clear now. He was too awesome. Kong Zan's specialty lay in the power of observation, and he was also a genius in psychology. Although Fatty's power was unknown, a distinctive characteristic could be told from the look in his eyes, that Fatty was soft at heart, and possibly an otaku. This was not uncommon, for example, those that could not bear to hit women. Although Luo Fei was not at that kind of level, for him to kill a woman, in the end he could not bring himself to do so. Compared to their opponents' celebrations, the solar system team's side was in deathly silence. Fatty clearly had a winning opportunity, but had faltered at the crucial point. What had happened? Had the opponent used ability X? Luo Fei ascended back, with a sheepish smile. Sorry, I was too. Smack, a crisp slap hushed the whole crowd. Lear had slapped Luo Fei, whose right cheek was beginning to swell. Even the opponents were uncertain of how to react. What was going on? Internal strife. Fatty was still smiling after he had been slapped. Boss, I was wrong. I won't do it again. Lear's cold gaze seemed to pierce Fatty's fat layers, and this was because they were in public. If they had been back on Earth, Fatty would probably shed a few layers of skin, or worse. A draw at 1-1. The third match became even more crucial. Fatty hung his head in the corner, and nobody spoke. The relationship between Luo Fei and Lear was known, but nobody expected it to come to this. It was almost as if Fatty was Lear's slave. Zhang Shan felt a little indignant, but said nothing. Wang Zheng smiled and shook his head slightly. He had predicted that, given Luo Fei's ability, the chances of winning were high unless he matched against their opponent's leader. Who would have known he would face such a problem? For the third match, the Silver Snake team had made their choice. Kong Zan, as the leader, should have held himself in reserve, but they did not expect the solar system team to be this strong. This third match was decisive, and he wanted to secure it. If one had Wang Zheng's ability, they would not have chosen him in the previous match but place him at a crucial interval such as now. As expected, Lear had already stood up. The opponents had chosen, and he clearly felt that there was nothing wrong with himself being chosen. More importantly, he wanted to save the decision error that Wang Zheng had made. This match. Wang Zheng smiled. Lear, no rush. Leave this one to me. Lear seemed like he was about to say something, but was reminded that Wang Zheng was the leader. He slowly sat back down. Wang Zheng was up. This leader had not left a particularly deep impression. From the start, he had been rather carefree. Some of the lounging spectators were suddenly jerked back to alertness. This was their purpose for coming, to bring back news of Wang Zheng. Although they were unsure why, their superiors had ordered thus, and they complied. Where does this punk Wang Zheng get such confidence from? Have you noticed? He's not nervous at all. I wonder if that's a good thing, Lai Wuqing said irritatedly. Nerves did not necessarily indicate fear. Sometimes it also represented prudence and focus. And composure could also mean a lack of responsibility. Could he actually think that he had already accomplished his mission thus? A soldier with no ambition to be general was not a good soldier. A warrior with no desire to push for more was not a good soldier. Dramok eyed Meng Ao, who looked calm. When had Meng Ao become so calm? He used to be different. Hey, old Ao, are you hiding something from us? What do I have to hide from you? You know everything there is to know. I just feel like since we decided on Wang Zheng as leader, we have to believe in him. At the same time, we don't need to humble ourselves. This iteration of the solar system team is very strong. Meng Ao spoke with confidence, but left Dramok and Lai Wuqing staring at each other. What the hell was going on? 2 days ago, he was the very picture of worry. What had changed? When he saw Lear stand up, Kong Zan had been secretly overjoyed. His judgment had been entirely accurate. The strong were so predictable. But he was wrong on one thing. Wang Zheng was not fond of playing his cards conventionally. Below, the slapped fatty was full of frustration. He was not frustrated at being slapped, but at the plan not moving accordingly. Before going up, he had seen Lear's signal. If Lear had suggested for him to go, he had to win. If Wang Zheng commanded him to go, he had to lose. That way, Lear could follow up with a win. This would demonstrate Lear's ability, and also undermine Wang Zheng's error in judgment. After all, this was the only place where Wang Zheng could be made to look bad. The slap just now was also part of the performance. Among soldiers, such a small matter was nothing to think about, and Meng Ao and the rest would admire Lear's decisiveness and leadership, but who would have thought Wang Zheng would be so anxious to go himself? This was not at all like a general. Seeing Wang Zheng advance stride by stride, Kong Zan felt like his own pores were shrinking in fear. His palms began to sweat. The opponent's smile looked like a devil's smile. Vicious was no longer enough to describe such a person. Only something that crawled out of hell could smile so peacefully. Going up against such a person would leave inerasable psychological trauma, even death. What to do? What to do? To fight or not to fight? Fight. He had to fight. He was the leader, and represented the Silver Snake team. He must have courage. No, he could not fight. He would definitely lose, and badly. This person was unbeatable. He had such a bright future ahead of him. Kong Zan felt as though everybody was looking at him. His body was afire. The Aslan people, Manalasuo people, them being here was no coincidence. They had to be here to see Wang Zheng, and how he would finish him. The generals could not directly express anything. Given their position and status, they had their honor to uphold. Besides, saying it directly was also pathetic. However, they could use certain methods to hint things, such as asking the watching teams to observe the Solar System Federation team more closely, especially those that they might go up against. What mech to choose? Kong Zan's hands were shaking. Since Kong Zan had come up first, Wang Zheng had to choose his mech first. Wang Zheng had not hesitated over much, choosing the Manalasuo's Golden Wheel Battle King mech. The Hercules was not too well suited for such a fight, and Fatty Luo had just lost a round, which meant this was a must-win. Kong Zan's heart was hammering, his sweat pouring down. The entire arena was noisy with discussion. including the solar system team, who were looking on with suspicious faces. What was he playing at? The Golden Wheel mech? Had he lost his mind? Even Zhang Shan's eyes widened. If not for the fact that he was used to Wang Zheng's odd ways of thinking, he would have been the first to cry out. Luo Fei was even more stunned. Lear liked to play with fire, and apparently Wang Zheng did too. What crazy people. Luckily, he did not need to think too much. He was just a loyal dog. Yet, at this moment, they could not afford to be discouraged and repress the doubt in their hearts. The Golden Wheel was an abandoned mech. Wang Zheng had actually chosen this mech at such a crucial time. Furthermore, wasn't he from Earth? Some people were beginning to notice Kang Zhan. What was wrong with the Silver Snake team leader? His face was white as a sheet, and his forehead beaded with sweat. His legs were even shaking. That berserk shadow seemed to be right in front of his eyes, growing larger and larger, a bloody, golden wheel that stretched from horizon to horizon flying towards him. Everybody quickly switched their attention from Wang Zheng's choice of golden wheel to Kang Zhan. This ray of hope for the Silver Snake Coalition did not seem to be himself at all. The Silver Snake Coalition members had discovered their leader's oddness as well. Within the team, Kang Zhan commanded leadership, and he had proved himself with his skills as well. In both rounds, he had demonstrated spectacular skill, and was regarded as a potential contestant for the top 10 rookies because of it. They had been anticipating Kang Zhan's intervention to secure them a win. With his ability, defeating an Earthling should be easily within his grasp. Kang Zhan clenched his fists tightly, sweat pouring. His face was flushed red. His ability X was foresight and prediction. The end of his life felt close at hand. Kang Zhan could sense the mind-numbingly terrifying energy from Wang Zheng's body. There could not be more than 5 of such people in the whole IG. This was a true devil. Contestant Kang Zhan, choose your mech, the judge prompted. I forfeit. In an instant, Kang Zhan seemed wasted, drained of all strength and color. Everybody was silent. The judge was stunned. Contestant Kang Zhan, a forfeit means surrender, you understand? Kang Zhan glanced at Wang Zheng. He seemed to have entered a dream-like state. He had been ensnared by the demons of his own making. More accurately, the demons in his heart had finally been released. Looking into Wang Zheng's eyes, he was filled with nothing but terror. Slowly, Kang Zhan's mouth opened, although he said not a word, he collapsed to the floor. Wang Zheng himself, let alone the others, was shocked. Damn, was he that frightening? Neither friend nor foe could make sense of what had just transpired. Wang Zheng had merely entered the field, and furthermore had made a strange choice. This alone had scared the Silver Snake leader into fainting? What was this? If the place had not been packed with watchful eyes, Wang Zheng might have been accused of sorcery. The paramedics intervened. Quick, his ability X is going haywire. Everybody was stunned. For such a thing to have happened at such a crucial time was a huge stroke of luck for the solar system. Or perhaps it was the Silver Snake that had met ill fortune? Just like that, the solar system team led 2-1. One more win would see them through to the top 32. At the same time, Manalasuo Republic was taking on Gaphalia Alliance's team. Gaphalia Alliance, who had drawn the shortest straw, was no strong veteran, but under excellent governance in the last decade, they had seen the entire alliance filled with a new, never-before-seen purpose. Besides, half the members had been sent to the Arbiter Republic to study under the label of exchange for the last 3 years, only returning at the beginning of the IG qualifiers. Privately, some called Gaphalia, Little Arbiter. And Gaphalia had truly displayed the strength of Little Arbiter. They had sailed through so far, their performance praiseworthy. They indeed had the character of Arbitan warriors, daring and capable of battle. Manalasuo is indeed strong, but don't forget that we've been through 10 times more training than they have. We will win. Leader Bernier was full of confidence. In this IG, not a single team's members had been through as much as they had. They had been chosen at the age of 14, and prepared specifically for this day. At the start, 3,000 youths of 13 or 14 had been chosen. After a year, only 200 were left to receive the honor of advancing to the Arbiter Republic to learn the art of war. Arbiter's most grueling training camp, in a mere year, 200 had been whittled down to 42 healthy survivors. The rest either had their spirits broken, or had been physically maimed. When the day to return dawned, only 7 were left. With them as the nucleus, this Gephalia team had been built. "We'll definitely win. How could they possibly be stopped here?" A light screen suddenly blossomed from the second-in-command Ackley's Skylink. It was a recorded video. The video featured over 100 youths, horrifically maimed, watching the spectacle on the stage. "This was what the general sent to me. They are waiting for the news of our success." These were their past comrades, those who had forever lost their chance, the failures in Arbiter's super soldier training camp. And they who were waiting in the preparation area were those who had succeeded. Now, and in the future, they had to continue to be the victors. They owed it to their fallen comrades. Fight, roar. The Gephalia team was filled with determination. On the platform, the various nations' representatives frowned. The intelligence on Gephalia was close to comprehensive. The training footage had also been reviewed. Ability-wise, they were definitely not on par with Arbiter, but once they entered a frenzy, things were different. As though possessing some berserk factor, the more enraged they became, the better they fought, even doubling their ability. Over at the Manalasuo Republic side, the reserves were warming up, while the main force was bored. Some were even sipping milk tea. They were taking this very lightly. Gephalia, aka Little Arbiter, Kiki, it was not even the real Arbiter, no cause for concern. "Don't waste too much time. When it ends, I want to review it." With that grim statement to the members, he left with the assistant leader, individually heading for the arenas in Zone A and Zone B. They completely did not regard their opponents as a threat. It was definitely a slight. Zone A, Aslan Empire vs Mist Country Team. Mist Country had 3 inhabitable planets and 17 large space cities, a business union. Their liberal stance had allowed them to accrue considerable human resources. In past IGs, they had always been a top 32 contender. Looks like the Mist Country team is going to be stopped at the top 64 this time. The first match had just ended in Aslan's win. The substitute had been sent, while Mist Country's leader had personally made an appearance. They had originally intended to take a point, seeing as it was Aslan's substitute. Even if they lost subsequently, it would be a point in their favor. Manalasuo's leader appeared on the zone of viewing platform just as the second round was beginning. Mist Country had sent out their assistant leader. Ability-wise, he was ahead of the leader, but he had character defects. He was the type that only knew how to fight. However, even against Aslan's substitute, he could not hold out for even 5 minutes, while the Aslan members were all calm, sweeping them unconcernedly in a 3-0, Aslan advanced. Soon, Manalasuo against Gephalia ended in a 3-0, a clean victory in 3 rounds. Gephalia, nicknamed Little Arbiter, were perhaps at their strongest in terms of gusto and ability, compared to previous years. If they had had better luck, and matched against another team, perhaps they could have made history in a spectacular battle. But against Manalasuo, they had not the quality, they could not be compared in the same class. All 3 matches ended within 5 minutes. Gephalia had indeed given their best and went berserk to the point where their powers had doubled. The Arbiter training camp's berserk training had indeed been effective. All 3 main team contestants had given off a completely different feeling. However, the difference in ability was real, and their huge improvement was still insufficient. This was not something that morale could make up for. The dispirited members crumbled, wailing in sorrow. It did not bring them victory. Back in the preparation zone, the assistant leader, who had headed for Zone B, had returned, his gaze flinty. How was Atlantis? As expected, a 3-0, and what? They used Aslan's Agile Guard, and not an Atlantean mech. The leader's eyes flashed. The outcome? No weaker than us. The assistant leader's words had stoked the intensity of the leader's gaze. What was Atlantis trying to convey? Were they trying to tell the rest that they were unbeatable? Zone E, Arbiter team against Owl Egg United Kingdom team. Unquestionably, the strength of Arbiter had drawn many observers. Half the teams would rather face Atlantis than go anywhere near Arbiter. Their reputation for cruelty was well known. At that moment the score was 2-0. 2 of Owl Egg's members had died in battle. Half of all the fighters did not have Arbiter's bloodthirst. They fought so ferociously that the opponent did not even have time to surrender. To Arbiter, they wanted to scare their opponents witless. The last match was just starting. The Arbiter captain, Olivius himself, made an appearance. The Owl Egg United Kingdom team members lowered their heads. Nobody was willing to fight this one. Whoever went up was putting their life on the line. The only way to live was to surrender now, but to dodge the fight meant giving up one's military career. Shi Long gritted his teeth. Olivia's aura could be keenly felt throughout the huge arena. It was as cold as the freezing depths of hell. "Captain, how about surrendering?" The members' eyes were downcast. They were unwilling to give up, but their bodies shivered in terror. Heedless. Nobody was willing to go up against the death god. Shi Long mulled over it long and hard, but finally shook his head. He was of the royal family in the Owl Egg United Kingdom, and represented the family's honor. If he gave up without a fight, it would be a huge blow to him, and to the entire family. Shi Long chose his strongest magic stone General IV, a defensive heavy mech. He was willing to forego attacking capabilities for an impenetrable shield. He just had to endure 5 minutes before surrendering. Nobody could fault him for that. Olivia's choosing hand was on the control panel, cycling through the mecha constantly. Apparently he had decided to utilize a random mech. A normal mech from the Mondo Republic, the Raphael General 3. This gave Shi Long a glimmer of hope, and also gave the Owl Egg team members hope. But a minute after the battle had started, the team head was shocked yet again. The titanium blades had pierced directly into the cockpit. On the big screen, the light that indicated Shi Long's life status extinguished. He was dead on the spot. Broken shield. Only one move was needed. The mech did not matter to Olivius. It was simply a tool for killing. "What are y'all doing in a daze? Go and save lives," the paramedic leader shouted. Although they knew it was hopeless, appearances had to be kept up. They rushed over, using their emergency tools to open the mech cockpit. Everybody vomited. What was the expression? Bones ground down to dust. What was the expression? Reduced to a ball of flesh and blood, a red hell. Shi Long had disappeared entirely, dissected by the huge titanium blade. His life had evaporated. There was nothing more to save, it was just a pool of red. Roar. On the viewing platform, the Owl Egg United Kingdom representatives stood up as a body. Protest, wanton and purposeful murder. But, silence, the objection is baseless. According to the rules, when one knows one's ability is insufficient, one can choose to surrender. Faced with the gory scene, the IG judges were also queasy, their eyes shifting around, but they had to declare Arbiter's win. Arbiter had always been thus, clamoring for both a name and their opponents' lives. To the Arbiter members, this was a negligible matter. They found the shock of the others laughable. Why join IG if you were scared of death? Nobody could stand against the mighty Arbiter Republic. Kong Zan's curious resignation had sparked chaos. The Silver Snake team members had raised protests, but the judge had overruled them on the basis of a lack of evidence. At this time, General Masu of the Silver Snake Coalition put a stop to this. He surmised that Kong Zan had realized Wang Zheng's true level from some source and seen things that he should not have. Sometimes, seeing more was not necessarily a good thing, especially when one's ability was insufficient. The Silver Snake Coalition's only hope had been to throw a dud against Wang Zheng and win the other rounds, but they had not foreseen that the solar system's other team members were not weak either. However, a chance remained. Although they were behind, Wang Zheng had still been removed. The next fight was for match point. It was the solar system's turn to go first. Lear's gaze flashed. Achilles was a little uncertain as well. In one glance, anybody could see that Kong Zan's abilities were considerable. How could he become so terrified? Although Wang Zheng was strong, he was not that strong. Regardless, Wang Zheng's image had improved further. "Zhang Runan, I leave this match up to you." His meaning was understood. Everybody should get a chance to test themselves, and Lear and Achilles did not object. Nobody was sure of what to say. Nobody wanted a walkover. The opportunity to fight was, of course, best. Zhang Runan did not hesitate. Win or lose, she would throw herself in willingly on the leader's command. Wang Zheng was sitting calmly, as though unconcerned about the result. IG looked like a war, but could actually change the fortunes of many. An evenly matched fight yielded not just experience, but also confidence. One could discover one's weakness on the battlefield. One who lacked battle experience would never improve. Within the solar system team, too many people were lacking. The Silver Snake team was fertile training ground. Over at the Silver Snake Coalition side, the vice captain, Shang Yu, frowned. Neither Achilles nor Lear had been sent, but instead the ugly girl Zhang Runan. Where did the solar system get their confidence from? From the side, the technicians quickly delivered the collected data on Zhang Runan. From their simple infographic, it was clear at first look. A strength-type ability X user, but not of a high level. I've got this one, Shang Yu took the initiative. Against a strength ability X, Shang Yu had 100% confidence in emerging victorious. Besides, the Silver Snake Coalition must had this. Shang Yu nodded and stepped forward, choosing the Fallen Angel Generation 3. The mech with the most attack power was most suitable for him. Strength-type ability X. Apologies. He too was a strength-type ability X user. Furthermore, in rank, he had the confidence that he stood above all strength-type users in this iteration. Top class D rank. Rumble, the battle began. Zhang Runan had chosen the Aslan Heavy Cavalry H, a mech suited for attack, but with light defensive capabilities. Asking for death. After entering the mech, Shang Yu's heart was bursting with rage. In front of the members, he had maintained a modicum of respect for Kang Zhan, because the Kang family was highly placed in the Silver Snake Coalition. In truth, he was seething fit to burst. Silver Snake warriors put death before dishonor. No matter the reason, Kang Zhan had thrown their pride in the dust. This rage could not be vented on Kang Zhan, so he had to channel it on the battlefield. Not his opponent's lucky day. Fallen Angel Generation 3 versus Heavy Cavalry H. Both were strength-type ability X users, and clashed immediately in a frontal, explosive impact. A clash with no other hidden moves. Bang! Sparks flew, and both mechas shook. The titanium blades crossed, creating even more blinding sparks. Neither side held back, immediately bringing their strength ability to bear. Boom! After a few short seconds, both exerted together, leaping backwards. Die! Shang Yu had switched on the mech's loudspeaker with a roar. Although they had seemed evenly matched in a clash, it had simply been a test of abilities. Zhang Runan's strength abilities' shortcomings had been firmly grasped in the clash. She was a low-class D rank, close to a mid-class. At this age, it was not bad, but against a top-class D ranker, she could not compare. He need not bring more strength to bear. Simply following her lead, and bringing his familiarity to bear, he could subdue the opponent. Maxed out, Zhang Runan's face was grave. Her forceful probes seemed to be hitting a wall. No, it was like going up against a mountain. Following closely, Shang Yu unleashed a few strong attacks. After testing her strength, he directly crushed Zhang Runan. He had thought the solar system team were strong, but they were merely average. They must have used some underhanded tricks to leave Kang Zhan in such a state. As a fellow strength type, and having done a stint at Academy X, Zhang Runan was clear that her opponent's level was a cut above hers, and not something she could match. From their short exchange, it was apparent that Zhang Runan's ability X was weaker by a huge margin. Since they had the same ability type, this spelled the end for her. Lear glanced at Wang Zheng. He believed that Wang Zheng had been aware of this, but he had still sent Zhang Runan. Why? Breakthrough in battle. What a naive hope. This was a classic last-minute preparation. But looking at Wang Zheng's composed figure, Lear began to fret. He detested these unreadable types. What was going on in Wang Zheng's brain? A lousy Aries college student and a country bumpkin, taking it in unconcernedly. Luo Fei's defeat had not ruffled him one bit. This was something entirely unheard of for someone of Wang Zheng's age, unless he was born with it, a natural optimist. Lear was caught up in the contradictions. On the battlefield, the ability gap was clear. It had to be said that Zhang Runan's curious fighting style was creating some complications for her opponent. Her movements flowed well, firing without pause. There was an artistry to her gunfire, and this enraged Shang Yu even further. His next moves were even harder, his beam saber slashing wildly. But sheer creativity could not hold him back forever. Zhang Runan breathed out lightly. To lose or to reveal her trump card? What should she choose? Her appearance had always been an insecurity to Zhang Runan. It had come to the point where she would not be willing to exert to that extent if it was not a matter of life and death. Especially not when it would be seen by others. Only, with a deep breath, Zhang Runan's eyes flashed with determination. Boom! The longer Shang Yu fought, the better he became. Especially against such an ugly girl. Destroying her was practically doing everyone a favor. Being born ugly ain't your fault, but showing that face to the world is a heinous crime. In battle, all forms of verbal insult were acceptable. A fighter who could not master their state of mind was an immature one. Undoubtedly, Shang Yu's taunt was toxic. As expected, Zhang Runan stopped running. Brandishing her long gun, she rushed towards him. The crowd was surprised. How could Zhang Runan fall for such a trick, and break her own good rhythm? Going head-on against such an opponent was folly. But the ghost of a smile appeared on the corner of Wang Zheng's mouth. Some things just had to be done. At least they had the privilege of choice. He thought back to the days when Bonehead had trained him. He had no choice then. Boom! With a deafening sound, both mech fighters were thrown back a step by the explosion. The crowd was stunned. This must be a dream. In an instant, the two had actually become of the same ability. A battle breakthrough? You must be joking, this ugly woman was actually concealing something? Both fired up again at the same time, moving simultaneously, yet before Shang Yu could make his move, Zhang Runan's rifle had already burst forward as fast as lightning, completely unhindered by the previous impact. What a fearsome recovery speed, and from a woman, blam 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 blam. The silver spear stabbed so quickly, it looked like a stream of mercury. This left everybody stunned. Were they seeing correctly? This was the strength of the solar system substitutes? This rare spear skill, and from a woman, as strength types, women could not compare to men. Perhaps this female barbarian was an exception. Her stature was huge, and she sported a huge bulk under those clothes. Shang Yu's rage built. He, have less strength than a woman? This was not just a question of strength. Zhang Runan's understanding of melee combat was in a class of her own. Those with martial foundations like Lear and the rest recognized this. In their words, Zhang Runan was a genius indeed. She had actually learned so much from the world of painting. Blam blam blam, after 8 stabs, Shang Yu had been reduced to a turtle in its shell. His shield broke after taking 13 piercing blows, and his beam saber had been knocked away. The fallen angel mech had been nailed to the wall with a final stab. An attack with the fury of a storm that left the entire spectator platform silent. After half a beat, the discussion resumed. This female barbarian had really turned the whole place upside down. Of course, there were a few jibes as well. Such a monster would only be loved by other monsters. She was ugly enough as it was. Combined with that strength, even ghosts would run from her. It seemed like she did not need to fight, she just had to show her face to frighten her opponent to death. Shang Yu had been promptly extracted from the cockpit by the paramedics. He had actually lost to a woman. And an ugly woman, at that. At this moment, everyone was looking at Zhang Runan's mech. The cockpit door opened, and a female fighter descended, her clothes clearly huge. Everyone's jaw, with the exception of Wang Zheng's, dropped. This was a female Tyrannosaurus. Everybody was looking at this familiar yet strange Zhang Runan. This was Zhang Runan. No matter how picky you were, the Zhang Runan approaching could not be called ugly by rights. Her face bore a majesty that only female soldiers had, and her eyes were filled with an unswerving determination that attracted a second glance. People began to break out into murmurs. Those that were more knowledgeable reacted immediately. This was a reverse strength type ability X, a rare type. Was this Zhang Runan's real face? Yi Zixu and the rest were stunned. She was pretty close with Zhang Runan, but this was her first time seeing such a face of Zhang Runan. This was no Tyrannosaurus, this was a goddess. A war goddess. Zhang Runan ignored their reactions, showing a look of disgust on her face. She must have been troubled by her appearance all the while. Sometimes ugliness made people leave her alone, both friends and strangers. This spotlight left her uneasy. Wang Zheng smiled. I'm really not used to seeing you like this. You bet, Zhang Runan said mildly. Even her voice tone had become higher. Lai Xin jumped on her, staring at her from head to toe. My god. Zhang Runan shrugged off Lai Xin's hand, returning to her place. Zhang Shan stared agape from the side, not daring to speak to her. His macho bravado had caught in his throat, and he swallowed it back down. The Solar System team had beat the Silver Snake team 3-1, and entered the top 32. One side was celebratory, the other hung their heads. Meng Ao and the rest looked at each other. Clearly they had not understood the team as well as Wang Zheng did. Zhang Runan was too unexpected, even pretending to be an ugly duckling. After the battle, the teams waited for the next command. IG battles were not always unchanging. Towards the end, complications would be set to test all-roundedness in individual capability and team coordination, as well as the depth of the substitutes. Fighting their way into the top 32 was already testament that the ability of the Solar System Federation team had developed greatly. It was no mere luck, and teams ahead that could not recognize this would suffer greatly. On that day, the top 32 were born. These were the strongest 32 teams that the galaxy had ever seen. Zone A. Aslan Empire Team, Astina Federation Team, Hercules Star Team, Sagittarius Team. Zone B. Atlantis Team, Versailles Empire Team, Islanda Team, Sirius Star Team. Zone C. Ghana Star Team, Immortal Fairy Star Team, Darkness Empire Team, Sagitta Federation Team. Zone D. Solar System Federation Team, Morgan Lock Empire Team, Manalasuo Empire Team, Karagal Stellar System Team. Zone E. Arbiter Republic Team, Big Bear Federation Team, Gandala Federation Team, Maya Empire Team. Zone F. Leah Sphinx Republic Team, Ipu Team, Queen Star Team, Hail Cloud Alliance Team. Zone G. Gemini Federation Team, Immortal Barbarian Star Team, Big Crab Federation Team, Spaceflight Star Team. Zone H. Maka Republic Team, Earthworm Federation Team, Thor Team, Steel Flood Team. Only 2 teams could emerge out of each zone, and the top 16 battles were a best of 7, although the battle format remained unchanged. After entering the top 16, the battle format would be changed, but firstly one had to have the aptitude to enter the top 16. Zone D, that the Solar System was in, was regarded as an average zone. Besides Manalasuo's domination, the other 3 teams had a fighting chance to qualify. The question was luck. The Zone D members were waiting quietly in the room. The Manalasuo members were particularly carefree. To them, their opponent did not matter, but to the other 3 teams, whoever could avoid Manalasuo stood a huge chance of entering the top 16. Max was currently praying. Their luck had been good, great even. They had actually made it into the top 32. Max had spotted Wang Zheng as well. This punk had actually led his team to the top 32. It looked like the Solar System was in the same situation. Accumulation of their long years of experience blossoming. It was a pity that they had been assigned the same zone. They would have to determine who was better now. On the screen, the Solar System Federation team's name appeared on the left. The other side cycled. Everybody's eyes widened, praying that their name would appear. Karagal Team, Manalasuo Team, confirmed. Max could not resist punching his fist in the air. Although he had wanted to clash against the Solar System team, at least they were not against the Manalasuo team. As for the Morgan Lock team, they would soon see who was the fiercer of the two. The unfortunate Solar System team seemed to have run out of luck. Max greeted Wang Zheng with a smile. Looks like our luck is the one that is still holding. Tisk tisk. But to the Solar System, this has already been a historical breakthrough. Your leadership deserves a page in your history. On the other side, the Manalasuo team members had already left. Besides the opponent's name, they were unconcerned as to who their opponents were. Who knows, we might be able to pull an upset. Perhaps we could qualify together, Wang Zheng said. Max could not believe his ears. Haha, right, qualify together. You had to give it to the Solar System people for their optimism. It looked like they had not been scared out of their wits by Manalasuo. They were either born with tremendous courage, or already resigned to their defeat. However, fate seemed to bring the two teams together regularly. Morgan Lock is a difficult matchup as well. Nothing left to do but to go at it. We've already made it so far, we want to have no regrets. Time-wise, we're due to start first. It might be possible for us to come to see your match after we're done. I'm definitely behind the solar system, Max said. Oh, right, let me tell you a secret. This is something that our guys found out. You know Manalasuo's golden wheel, right? I hear this Vincent is the only one who can pilot the golden wheel mech effectively. This mech is regarded as trash, but rumor has it that if you can control it, it possesses an unthinkable battle power. I've got it. Wang Jung laughed. Max was a little miffed by his unsatisfactory response. This guy seemed to be completely unconcerned by his warning, but then again, it was to be expected. What difference did knowing make? The other solar system members had differing reactions. Taros was already feeling sidelined. As the battles progressed, he felt more and more powerless. Masashi and Lai Guang's abilities were below average in the team as well, so it would be difficult to send them in the later battles. Meng Tian was in the same boat. She was not suited to these one-on-one battles. Her abilities were better suited in a team. Whereas Lear and Achilles' eyes had lit up with joy when they were set to face Manalasuo. Max and his team were practically skipping as they left. Their behavior irritated the Morgan Lock members. Historically, Morgan Lock was a much stronger team than Karagal. Vincent was a little surprised. When their next opponent had been decided, Lieutenant General Bull had called him over for a warning, as though he was wary of the Solar System Federation team. Was this a joke? The magnificent Manalasuo Empire team, the meek Solar System Federation team, they could bowl them over even by farting. At this point in the competition, everyone was clear that each round counted for a lot. Many doors would open if they advanced, but the difficulty now was raised considerably. The top 16 battles needed 4 wins out of 7 matches, and the team's substitute strength would be needed. The Solar System team was not overly panicky. Everyone had started to realize that they were calm thanks to Wang Jung. He had not even gone up himself despite making it so far. Once he showed his hand, only then would they reach their 100% potential? That was definitely daydreaming. In the previous fights, everyone was clear of their relative strength, win or lose, and adjust accordingly. To take the win, one must first understand oneself. Going up against Manalasuo was undoubtedly going to be a tough fight. Perhaps it did not mean much to Manalasuo, but to the solar system, they had not fought a worthy battle in a long time. More accurately, they had not found the chance to fight a team of such caliber. Friendly contest. Nobody was interested. The Solar System Federation Council had sent some encouraging words as well. On the one hand, they congratulated the solar system team for coming further than ever before. At the same time, they hoped for the team to continue striving and defeat Manalasuo. At night, the members were gathered. This is what our people have gathered of the Manalasuo members' battle footage. For your reference, Manalasuo's strength is undisputed, but there is no need for anybody to undervalue yourself. That we've made it this far is a testament to our strength. Wang Jung, we leave the rest up to you. Because they had never gone up against Manalasuo before, they had expended considerable effort in gathering intelligence. Meng Ao clapped Wang Jung on the shoulder. This was all he could do now. Against a team like Manalasuo, it really boiled down to one's own effort and luck. This battle would decide the fate of the solar system team, whether they would be called lucky or strong. The female official on stage was Major Zhu Zilling, the emissary from the Solar System Federation to Aslan. Manalasuo is among the top 10 in this iteration of IG, and a frequent presence in the IG top 8. In terms of mecha, they have one of the most advanced techniques, and have their own unique style in training mech pilots as well. They are the main rivals of the Aslan Empire, but in their rivalry, both have ceaselessly and rapidly improved as well. Let me first introduce a few noteworthy personnel. On the screen, a burly, bearded warrior appeared. Manalasuo's main strength and point fighter, Gelen. Although he looks old, he just developed early, 20 years of age. Originally a conscript, his battle talent was discovered, and he was sent to Manalasuo's Abyss Military School for further development. His battle experience is prolific, and he has the qualities of a strong fighter. What we currently know is that he is a double ability X user of strength and speed, a high-class D ranker. As she finished speaking, Zhu Zilling stepped aside to show Gelen's battle footage. It was only a little more than 10 minutes, because his opponents could not even stand 5 minutes against him. His fighting style was like a hurricane, a frenzied assault that did not let up until his opponent was finished. Using his strength ability and speeding up his dispatching moves, it was virtually unbeatable. In a mecha battle, mastery of speed and strength was everything. Next up, Razley, originally designated team captain, but later made the vice captain. A well-rounded fighter, suitable for any position. Made it to the last IG as a member, and strongest in balanced fighter mecha. A military student at Manalasuo this year, with high expectations, he has secured 58 consecutive victories this year, and is at present undefeated. What followed was Razley's fight. It did not reveal much. No ability X was revealed. His battle foundations and nature suppressed his opponents. He made his opponents look like little children. Following that, Zhu Zilling introduced the other members one by one, detailing their battle training and performance in international practice matches. A person with an icy gaze appeared on the screen. This is Vincent, the Manalasuo captain. But at the start, he was not the captain. More accurately, he was an addition close to the start of the IG itself, but was quickly delegated the role of captain. We only managed to acquire 2 videos of his fights. Everyone was stunned. Sniper-type mecha were notoriously bad in one-on-one matchups, especially in closed-off practice arenas. The screen played both of Vincent's fights, and everybody gasped a little. This was a sniper who dared to fight close combat. Precision shooting tactics. Everybody knew that railguns immediately became burdens once close combat ensued, especially when the defensive energy shields were up. Therefore, once the mecha closed in, they would change to close combat mode. But this Vincent met his opponent up close, defeating them with one shot after the other. Zhu Zilling did not add her own analysis. Her role was strictly to introduce. Although these youths were no older than herself, their understanding of the battle was much better than hers. Vincent was clearly toying around on the battlefield. His movement and confidence was unbelievable, even calculating the feedback from the railgun's impact, and dodging it. He gave the impression of perfect control. After the broadcast ended, Wang Zheng and the rest were quiet. Meng Tian was a sniper, and watching Vincent's performance made her feel hopelessly outclassed. A marksman unafraid of close combat. This was the limit. Furthermore, Vincent used no ability X, defeating his opponents easily. But everybody knew that their potential did not stop there. This was merely practice footage. They would at most have showed 50 or 60% of their true strength. But for Meng Ao to have secured such intelligence was already no mean feat. At least they could familiarize themselves. In the last round, Manalasuo had easily won 3-0. They had revealed little, although the crowd had watched closely. In the finer details, one could see their character show. To effortlessly put out such a level of performance, their opponent's level this time around was a cut higher than in previous fights. Zhu Zilling looked at the team. Logically they should have been feeling the pressure, but in fact, Wang Zheng and a few others looked composed. Major Zhu Zilling was also the intelligence analyst. From their performance so far, although Manalasuo was a formidable presence, and far outstripped the solar system's level, she wanted to remind them not to be cocky that they had come this far. If they put their lives on the line and contested hard, there was still a chance. Actually, the council's meaning was that failure was acceptable, but not by too large a margin. After the video ended, nobody tarried for too long, leaving quickly. Zhu Zilling called Wang Zheng back. Captain Wang Zheng, is there anything else you need help with? Wang Zheng smiled slightly. Thank you for your efforts. Nothing much else, really. We'll see after the battle tomorrow. Zhu Zilling was speechless. Was this it? Shouldn't he be more concerned about his opponents, about how Vincent had evolved from a nameless grunt to Manalasuo's captain? This was a fairly earth-shaking development. Did he not care about how it had come about? Over at the Manalasuo side, Vice Captain Razley was watching the solar system team's footage with his team. They had fought many battles previously, and everybody's performance was clear to see. Although Vincent was absent, the members did not particularly mind his absence. In Manalasuo, the strong were given leeway. Although he was a last-minute pick as captain, nobody had any objections. This iteration of the solar system is divided into 2 clear types. One group of them have solid foundations, the other has unique abilities. For example, this Zhang Shan's translocation is not bad, although his foundations are somewhat lacking. In a one-on-one, his utility is not that high, although in a group battle he might have noteworthy performance. The solar system's strongest point, their strongest point is that their chicks look good, haha. But after seeing Kang Zan's match, Razley harbored some doubts. He was familiar with Kang Zan. The boy was a rising star, and his ability was certainly strong. Yet he had surrendered without even a fight. Something was fishy here. Some dirty tricks? Could this be to secure the solar system's advance? What a joke. Razley was also doubtful, although he found Zhang Runan appealing. A woman with character and noticeable features. Her gunwork was interesting as well. Gellin, how about if this girl was left to you? Razley offered. Gellin smiled openly. This wench has character and strength. I like her. Razley, I'll say it first. Although I'll beat her, I won't hurt her. Up till now, the others don't look like much of a threat. Their strengths and weaknesses are very clear, and can easily be dealt with. After going through it once, they lost interest in the solar system. As for their rotating shovel, it was too foolhardy. The weaknesses were apparent, and the movement sluggish. Everything depended on that technical attack. Would every opponent be so foolish to risk their lives and go hard? In the current meta of fast-paced battles, this type of flowery trick was not popular. In the fight for the top 16, Zone D's first match was Karagal team against Morganlock team. Max led his Dark Horse team to the field. They had been regarded as an unexpected contender, just like the solar system. Besides, on the whole, Karagal's performance was seen to be more stable and better than the solar system's. Although labeled as dark horses, Karagal's emergence was not too surprising. Karagal was a former colony of commerce which gained independence as the Karagal Republic. Their population was modest, and not particularly affluent. Their citizens were mostly Jewish, an ancient civilization that was considerably united. After long wars, peace had gradually returned to the Karagal Republic, but till date, they continued to practice conscription for the entire nation. While this system was also implemented in other countries, in terms of execution, there were few who could stand up to Karagal. In the Karagal Republic, becoming a soldier was an honor. Although they were not as fanatical as Arbiter, they outshone them in their independence. For example, if you were a soldier, waving your hand on any street in Karagal would see taxis and even private cars stop for you, delivering you free of charge to your destination without exception. Therefore, in this peaceful period, the Karagal Republic's rate of improvement was ferocious. Although the Republic's national strength could not compare to larger countries, their national service was of a high caliber. Besides, in the Karagal Republic, all female citizens, unless for reasons of faith, pregnancy, or criminal record, similarly served 2 years. Therefore, in the Karagal Republic, pretty women soldiers were a draw, and they were not simply pretty faces either. In this regard, quite a few countries also had female officials, but in the case of troopers, they had no equal. On the platform, besides the two team representative groups, the Solar System Federation team and Manalasuo team had arrived as well. Once this contest ended, it would be their turn. In Group D, only 2 teams could make it to the top 16. Max waved to Wang Zheng, who was on the platform, giving him a thumbs up. Clearly the Karagal team was feeling good. Wang Zheng, look at that punk, he's pretty optimistic. I wonder if they can get past Morganlock. What do you think, Nan, Runan? Zhang Shan said. Ever since Zhang Runan's appearance had stabilized, everybody had felt a little off. They were still not used to Zhang Runan's sudden change in appearance. Zhang Runan felt that she was especially unbecoming as well, but her ability X had risen. After she transformed, she would return to her current state. Faced with a beauty though, the usually prattling Zhang Shan was a little thrown off. Actually, the Karagal Republic has been improving very rapidly in recent years. Runan could hold her own in a military beauty contest over there now. Even Achilles could not resist jibing. Eyes on the match. Zhang Runan suddenly turned on them. In comparison, Meng Tian was the cooler-headed of the two. Although they did not speak much, they connected well. The following battles had surprising results. Between Karagal and Morganlock, Morgan Lock stood above them in terms of past results, their ranking about 30 places higher. But under Karagal's leadership, they had destroyed Morgan Lock in a frenzied 4-0. The Karagal Republic always prayed before their battles, thanking God for giving them life, sustenance, and strength in battle. Systematic, solid, all-rounded, united. That was the current Karagal Republic team. Under Max's leadership, the Karagal Republic team had entered the top 16 for the first time in history. The arena was filled with cheers from Karagal's team and their representative group. On the other side, Morgan Lock was dispirited and helpless. There were no deaths in this battle, only 3 light injuries, which spoke of the Karagal team's control of the battle. The Karagal Republic, which had always been treated lightly, had blossomed in this iteration of IG. Amongst them, Max's performance was laudable. Morgan Lock's captain, Bo Yakao, had planned to turn their disadvantageous situation with the leader face-off in round 2, but had been defeated by Max. This had severely affected the Morgan Lock team's morale, and they had crumbled. The leader fight was a double-edged sword, especially towards internal morale. Win, and your team was filled with spirit. Lose, and it seemed hopeless. Bo Yakao would never dream that he would be beaten by some nameless punk. The victorious Karagal team saluted the entire field. Their conduct was humble. They neither strutted in victory nor wallowed in defeat. They maintained an even attitude. Such a team spoke of greatness in their country. The best was yet to come. Manalasuo's team against the Solar System Federation's team. Max and his team did not celebrate excessively. After celebrating briefly, they returned to the spectator platform. They were more than in the mood to enjoy the upcoming battle. Although they had no stake in the battle, they felt a certain kinship with the Solar System Federation team, and were eager to demonstrate solidarity. The IG was not given to pomp and fanfare. After the judges had finished reading out the competing team members from the display, the competition began. Both team captains opted to field their fighter first. At that moment, the Great Hall quietened. Manalasuo's representative members were especially serene. To them, this was just a normal match, and there was no need to make a fuss out of it. To the Solar System Federation team, however, they were starting to get nervous. This was their first time facing such a formidable opponent. Wang Zheng's gaze scanned through everyone. The Solar System team did not have as positive a team atmosphere as Karagal, but sometimes a little dissent meant something else, that there were strong, independent minds. The level of competition here was naturally different. The first battle was no trifling matter. First battle, Achilles. It's time to show the Milky Way Alliance the Solar System's strength. Wang Zheng smiled. Achilles stood up and nodded. I've waited a long time for this. Finally I can get into action. Regardless of whether it was the last battle, everybody could go all out and prove themselves. Achilles stepped up. On the other side, Vincent looked at Gelen. It isn't the pretty girl, but it's a pretty boy instead. Go take care of him. Gelen stood up, indifferent. We aren't picky eaters, I'll destroy them all regardless of gender. Gelen, Manalasuo's point fighter, sized Achilles up, and directly chose Manalasuo's heavy humanoid-type mech, Electric Deathlock. Manalasuo had made their name through creating the weird. Amongst all of the mecha produced by their country, the weirdest would undoubtedly be the Golden Wheel mech. Of course, that was a failed product, while the Electric Deathlock was a success. Besides a tank mech-level energy shield defense, it came equipped with an electrified Kusarigama, hooked scythes on a chain which had an attacking range of about 20 meters. The chains could be lengthened or shortened at will. In a group fight, it was nigh unbeatable, capable of both defense and offense. The edge of soft weapons and the weird trajectory of attack gave him an inhuman feel. Similarly, the Electric Deathlock was a mech that was onerous to master, but in the ace team of Manalasuo, they were definitely equipped to handle it. In an era where the main fighting force was equipped with ace mecha, the sheer quantity of mecha was no longer the prime determiner of victory. Instead, the emphasis had turned to quality. In such a practice arena match, it was almost hopeless to go up against the Electric Deathlock. The crowd turned towards the Solar System team's pretty boy. Finally there was someone even paler than Wang Zheng. Achilles' expression was serene, but everybody knew that he must have been consciously acting that way. The Electric Deathlock had no obvious weakness. Perhaps in a more complicated terrain there might be a way to counter it, but in such a place. However, Achilles did not hesitate for very long, readily selecting the mech he needed, the Moon's Moonlit Sage Rider V. This was a balanced fighter mech, not regarded as a specialty mech. Its capabilities were very good, and the excellent teams in the Moon Army were outfitted with it. Retractable titanium guns and small, round shields on each shoulder gave it defensive traits. Balance in all things was the strong point of those from the Moon, but could the Moonlight Sage Rider defeat the Electric Deathlock? Both of them entered their cockpits and started up the mecha. Harmonization, linking up, 10%, 50%, 100%. Both mechas' eyes lit up. At this time the audience was quickly filling up. Only the various country representatives and official personnel, or the Aslan hosts could enter. They were here for only one purpose, to confirm the Manalasuo team's abilities for themselves. The top 32 was the warm-up for all the strongest teams. The top 16 would see a huge ramp-up in battle intensity, and an understanding of the opponent's situation was necessary. Gelen also needed to warm up during this match, to elevate himself to a higher state than his current one. In the next round, he might very well face an opponent of similar caliber, and all the experienced teams would be making similar preparations. Otherwise, a second lieutenant like Gelen would not need to make an appearance against a team like the Solar System Federation. Rumble, rumble, the two mecha appeared on the arena. Zhang Shan surged to his feet, howling. Everybody turned to look at him, because he was the only one. The Manalasuo representatives took one look at his crazed expression and dismissed him as a maniac. Meng Ao felt a little embarrassed as well. This brat was really too excitable. But Zhang Shan did not care. Life was as brief as a burning candle, and one should not overthink it. After the Moonlight Sage Rider appeared, it did not rush to prepare any moves. It stood with arms extended, the titanium guns ready. They had been laxer in the earlier rounds. If they wanted to go far, they had to control their own state of mind and body. Showing their hand too early was meaningless. Yet, at this juncture, the Solar System team needed some morale and to put pressure on their opponents. This was Wang Zheng's intent in letting Achilles take the field. In this iteration of the Solar System team, 3 people had risen to prominence. Besides himself, there was Lear and Wang Zheng. Both Lear and himself could fight, inherently talented and strong. This was where Lai Xin fell behind a step. Although the Lai Flame technique was not bad, her talent had not brought her to an indomitable pinnacle. He and Lear were different. This was why their ambitions were burning so brightly, and they had not expected an even more extraordinary Wang Zheng. Although the team had their fair share of internal strife, all of them had the same goal. Although Lear liked to play his little games, the big picture would always come first. He was no fool. He would open with the first shot. Gelen looked at his opponent and suddenly smiled. He would taunt the opponent a bit first. The Electric Deathlock let loose a huge sound, and its 2 arms shot a hail of lasers. At the same time, its laser cannons flipped outwards, aiming towards the Moonlit Sage Rider like some sort of grotesque beast. Everybody was stunned for a moment. Rumble, the lasers enveloped the Moonlit Sage Rider in an instant. Gelen laughed as he fired. This guy liked to show off. He clearly knew his firepower was so much weaker, but he still put on airs and struck a pose. No wonder the solar system had always been weak. Whoosh, a shadow charged forward through the screen of bullets. Gelen was expecting it. With a swivel of his shoulder cannons, 2 rocket lasers fired towards the Moonlit Sage Rider. They were the seeking type, and would seal off the Moonlit Sage Rider's movement patterns. After just evading a ferocious attack, could the Moonlit Sage Rider still move? However, Achilles did not evade it, but leapt towards it, titanium guns in hand. This, F***CK, was this suicide? Whoosh, whoosh, miraculously, the 2 rockets actually did not explode, but were diverted to either side. Gelen's eyes widened. F***CK, what ability was this? But Manalasuo people always responded quickly. Although they were surprised, their movements did not lag. Firepower that filled the skies was aimed to suppress the opponent's movement. The Moonlit Sage Rider's engine roared, carrying it towards the skies. The titanium gun brandished towards Gelen. Gelen smiled slightly, answering it with his fist. Boom! The moonlit Sage Rider flew backwards, skidding for 6 or 7 meters. The electric deathlock slowly straightened up as well, retracting the shoulder cannons. Looks like you're not half bad. Gellin could sense that his opponent had not used his full power. The titanium gun had only probed lightly before disengaging, as though disdaining such an opening for attack. He spread his arms. In his left hand was a chain, in his right hand a sickle. The scythe started to spin in his hands, quickly turning the sky into a danger zone. The electric deathlock approached the moonlight Sage Rider step by step. Achilles suddenly rushed at him. Whoosh! The electrified Kusarigama flashed out, tracing a bewildering pattern in the air. It lashed directly forward at the moonlit Sage Rider, fierce and hurried. The moonlit Sage Rider lowered its head, and the chain passed over its shoulder. But this chain could not be grabbed. Contact would be rewarded with 200,000 volts of high charge. It was nothing to be played with. Just as Achilles was about to attack, he sensed danger. Gellin smiled grimly and tugged. The scythe boomeranged back, wrapping towards the moonlit rider. Whirlpool lasso constriction, Gellin's unique move. Once the electrified chain held you tightly, you would be as helpless as a crab in a fisherman's net. Boom! The moonlit rider rushed to the skies. At the same time, the silver gun fired at the ground, giving it the extra bit of lift to shrug off the confines of the electrified chain, but at the same time, it was struck by the chain. But a ear-splitting rumble came from the side. The huge electric deathlock was already rushing towards the moonlit rider. This was too relentless. At this moment, the moonlit rider had started to descend, and Gellin let an excited expression show. This move was known as scattering the chickens to hit the egg. His other move was just to lead Achilles into a position like this. Boom! The timing was just right, when the moonlit rider was just about to land. Although the silver gun had been hooked by the chain previously, it could still fire. Although the moonlit rider was sent flying, he had managed to use the force from firing the guns to dodge the brunt of the blow. Gellin rubbed his chin. Damn, what a wily bastard, missed again. The electrified Kusarigama started to rotate again, at the same time charged with electricity. The entire chain was crackling with lightning, and as it spun, a hum could be heard. Gellin's composure seems to be slipping a little. Being played with like that by the Earthlings, it's to be expected. Those who were familiar with Gellin widened their eyes in surprise. Those in charge of recording were even more attentive, because this was Gellin's unparalleled ultimate move. Gellin was no small fry in the solar system. His Kusarigama in Manalasuo was the best. Paired with his unique ability X, he almost seemed like a hacker. Wielding his electrified Kusarigama, the electric deathlock stepped towards the moonlit rider. His speed was unhurried, almost taunting. But anyone would feel misgivings when faced with the huge reverberations emanating from the Kusarigama. Similar heavy-type mecha did not have the agility to evade it, whereas scout-type mecha would be completely wrecked at the slightest brush with the chain. A fighter-type mech fit nicely in the middle, giving one the illusion of chance. But in truth it was the weakest matchup. It neither had the required speed nor the required defensive capabilities. Its energy shields could not stop such an attack. The Kusarigama's rotation was so fast that it was beginning to generate static, almost forming a net in the air. The two mecha were about 10 meters apart. The situation seemed completely in the hands of the electric deathlock, while the moonlit rider seemed helpless. Against such a ferocious fighter, the moonlit rider seemed like a helpless damsel in distress, struggling against a macho villain for emotional entertainment. Kill! With a violent shrug of the electric deathlock's shoulder, the Kusarigama was about to move. But what was surprising was the Kusarigama did not attack. In fact, the spasm created a magnetic storm that enshrouded the moonlit rider. Whoosh! At such a close distance, there was no way out. Binded. In a flash, the moonlit rider seemed to have been captured by the energy chains. This was Gellin's ability X. The reason for his affinity with lightning was an unsurpassed understanding of electricity. Combined with his considerable physical strength, it brought him to stand unflinchingly at the point position in Manalasuo. The fatal Kusarigama flew out at this moment. Boom! Everyone was deathly quiet, stunned into silence by the electric deathlock's godlike power. There was no way out. Contact would mean death, and the moonlit rider was trussed up like a chicken with that last move. Achilles also seemingly had used his full strength. At the crucial moment, the titanium gun moved, blocking the Kusarigama, but it was wrapped in the chain. Gelen exerted furiously, pulling the Moonlit Rider over. At the same time, he gunned his engines. This was a finishing move. Once trapped in his magnetic storm, the energy shields would fail within a minute, while a full frontal collision with the electric deathlock would smash the pretty boy to smithereens. As much as he liked pretty girls, he liked crushing pretty boys too. The enormous electric deathlock flew towards the Moonlit Rider like a cannonball. Yan Xiaoshu closed his eyes. Fuck, this was too gory. He was too soft-hearted a person to witness such a grisly scene. He might not have seen eye to eye with Achilles in the past, but he was still one of them. To see his battered corpse, what a waste of talent. Yi Zixu was watching intently. She was not watching the battle outcome, but rather the capabilities of the mecha. In this battle, the electric deathlock held all the advantages. The capabilities of the Moonlit Rider were simply insufficient to change the battle. This was a hopeless match. Most crucially, once hit by the electromagnetic bind, not only would the shields be disabled, but the functional capacity would be cut by half or more. Faced with the ferocious electric deathlock, it would not have the power to retaliate further. 1 meter, suddenly, the fated-to-die Moonlit Rider grabbed the chain and charged towards the electric deathlock. He twisted the chain lightly. Such fearsome momentum could be easily borrowed and turned. But in the moment he twisted, the chain fell on the electric deathlock. Gelen was taken aback. Grimacing, he poured on the power. He had no idea how his opponent had shrugged off the bind, but for a little weasel like the Moonlit Rider to have trapped his own electric deathlock, how unbelievable was that? Boom! At that instant, everybody's eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets. As though the Moonlit Rider had grown roots, the enormous electric deathlock had been knocked upwards, speeding up by about 15 or 16 times. Gelen's face was flushed, and blood spurted from his mouth and nose, and his brain was on fire. The huge electric deathlock had been trapped in the air, and the Moonlit Rider fired a shot. From the start of the battle, this had been the only worthy attack that Achilles had made. Somehow, this one shot made the electric deathlock look weak, incapable of locking down anything, and nothing more than a brittle-skinned toy. Boom, it was over. The broken shell of the enormous electric deathlock was slumped over a single shoulder of the Moonlit Rider. The shot was good. The electric deathlock crashed to the floor, sparks flying from its chest, just millimeters from the cockpit. The titanium guns retracted with a flip, suave and composed. This was how Achilles, the sun god, always was. Solar System Team, Achilles win. The paramedics rushed in to extricate Gelen from the cockpit. His injury was mainly due to the sudden reversal of his momentum being dragged back. It had scrambled his internal organs. This guy clearly had guts. He had not fainted, but was holding on, staring down at the pretty boy. He would destroy his pretty face with just one hand. Achilles shook his head slightly. Looks like the reputation was undeserved. The entire spectator crowd was silent until the elevator returned. Achilles sauntered back, face unflushed, and heart still. He had a smile on his face. At this moment, the Solar System team erupted into shattering cheers. Although the battle had just begun, this fight had broken their gloom. The Karagel Republic team was shocked as well. Since when had the Solar System become this good? Max and his teammates exchanged glances. This did not seem right. Could they really pull an upset? The fearsome strength needed to single-handedly take down the beastly electric deathlock. He had actually managed to shrug off the energy bind. Did the Moonlit Rider have such capabilities, or was it his ability X? Manalasuo's faces were no longer as relaxed. A loss did not mean much by itself, but more importantly, it was indicative that their opponents were serious business. This was an undisguised call-out. Unbearable. Who would go for the second round? Rasley, Vincent commanded solemnly. Before the match, they had roughly gone through the Solar System team lineup. This Achilles had the biggest reputation amongst them, nicknamed the Sun God. They had thought him a puffed-up brat, but had not expected him to be this good. Strength type and specialty ability X user? Although this could not have been foreseen, a physical ability and specialized ability were often incompatible. Even Gelen had been through 3 rounds of physical strengthening. This was biological engineering rather than genetic modification. It could increase a soldier's strength output manifold. Of course, some physical conditions had to be met, and it had a chance of failure. But neither side could dwell over much on this. They had to get on with the battle. For the second round, Manalasuo's choice was a prime fighter, Razley. Looking in the IG, this was one of the strongest leads. Formerly the captain, he had ceded the role to Vincent for unknown reasons, although this by no means meant that Razley was weak. In the last iteration, his performance had been stupendous, losing only to the Atlantis team. But this iteration, he had come back with a storm to take the championship. On the solar system side, it was time for King Lear to make his appearance. It was time to see if he was a dragon or a worm. Razley was filled with arrogance. As the vice-captain of Manalasuo, and a participant in the last iteration of IG, his influence in the Manalasuo military school was considerable. He had to give it to the solar system. Their Achilles had performed at an unprecedented level in the first round, and this tempered Razley's attitude a little. The problem was that tempering your attitude in no way meant that your opponent had to temper his as well. As Lear took the field, he merely glanced at Razley. He took no further interest in the Manalasuo vice-captain, who had stepped 2 paces forward only to pause, embarrassed. Lear chose his mech, an assassin-type mech from Earth's Kronos family, Unbounded Skychains. This mech had been produced by Kronos for more than a decade, but its capabilities were average. This was a scout mech, and had a certain degree of agility, but in truth, its defenses were too weak. As a humanoid scout mech, his agility and speed could not compete with beast-type mecha. Most crucially, it came with titanium swords. Normally, higher-class assassin-type mecha chose curved blades, but this mech had purposely been equipped with standard titanium swords. In a world where beam sabers and titanium blades were favored, titanium swords had already been out of the meta. Just their contour alone was unsuited for battle. It was rumored to be the Kronos family's aesthetic indulgence. As the family name grew, one unpopular mech meant little difference. As Manalasuo's ace candidate, Razley had tried out many different mecha, but he had not tried this one before. All he knew was that it was a failed scout product. The designer's brain had been faulty. It would be completely thrashed by beast-type mecha. Razley hated this Lear punk. His features alone made him want to beat him up. He had a superior expression that only made that feeling stronger. Razley had chosen Manalasuo's beast-type scout mech, Vampiric Werewolf. Possessing excellent movement and turning capabilities, and scary titanium blades with strong close combat abilities, this was definitely a killer from the shadows, a sniper's nightmare. Because of Achilles' unexpected performance in the first round, the audience was filled with curiosity for this round. It was said that Lear was the biggest braggart in the solar system, and the most stuck up, but his mech choice was amateur. Is Lear trying to advertise his own family? Zissou, are you familiar with this mech? Yan Xiaoshu asked. This has been regarded as a recent failure of the Kronos family. It's too idealistic, although the capabilities are not bad. Everything had been value added, but nothing actually works. In practical battle, the response has been lackluster. Yi Zissou shook her head. If Lear was trying to use the battle as advertisement, it was definitely a high-reward move. If he won, it would immediately attract the military's attention. But this was also a high-risk move. Boss, the solar system sent Manalasuo scuttling off like rabbits. So aggressive. Rousseau laughed. He was Karagel Republic's point fighter. Max was puzzled as well. From the first match, the pace of battle had been off. It was as though Pandora's box had just been opened, and the Solar System Federation team was just starting to get serious. But such a way of thinking belonged only to the strongest. For a team like the Solar System, this would be baseless and arrogant. Regardless, all would come to light after this match. Lear and Razley entered the elevator. The mecha had already arrived. Lear jumped into the mech with a practiced move. The main designer of Unbounded Skychains had been Lear. It was the materialization of his vision. But normal people would not understand his genius. Because of this, he had become passive within his family for a spell. A jack of all trades, sitting duck mech. After so long, there was finally an opportunity for him. He was Lear. Without a suitable stage, why would he show them? The two mechas started their engines and rumbled their way into the practice arena. A battle between Scout Mecha was undisputedly the most fast-paced. The vampiric werewolf faced unbounded sky chains. The battle began. Razlay's eyes were locked on that scrawny mech with its titanium swords ill-suited for cutting. That guy was sick in the mind and plagued with weaknesses. The scrawny mech had a pitiful defense. Its best aspect was its speed, but against an agile beast-type mech, it was food. Within the world of Scout Mecha, beast-type mecha were harder to master than humanoid-type mecha. But once mastered, the situational limitations were fewer. The outcome of humanoid against beast was always one-sided. In the last match, Manalasuo had carelessly lost, and big. In this match, he had to bring morale back to the team. The vampiric werewolf's engine gave a low growl. At the same time, its body rose, gathering power in its four limbs. With a deafening sound, the vampiric werewolf rushed its prey. A ferocious attack, four limbs askew. Such speed left humanoid mecha in the dust. Unbounded Skychain unsheathed its titanium swords. Achilles and the rest were staring at Lear. Earth was the founder of strengthening battle power, and Lear was undisputedly one of the representative characters of Earth. What was he capable of now? Achilles had already sensed the heightening of the Heavenly King arts, and this allowed them not to over-rely on Ability X to deliver fatal attacks to their opponents. Did this herald the beginning of a new era? Boom! The werewolf rose in the air. Mid-air, its claws crackled with lightning, murderously aimed at unbounded sky chains. Ting, 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 sparks flew from the contact of metal on metal. The werewolf suddenly pounced. It turned suddenly, its four limbs delivering a frenzied attack with no weak points. The air was filled with the glints from its blades as it prepared to shred the weak unbounded sky chains. Werewolf's mad dance, forceful leaps, sudden direction changes. However, Lear's defenses were flawless against such a crazy assault, his swords flashing out again and again. Razlay put on the pressure. His opponent could not counterattack, he would claw him to death. The consecutive frenzied claws struck out high, middle, and low. In a short span of 5 minutes, Razlay had executed a few hundred attacks, leaving everybody stunned. Such a frenzied assault, however, had been completely blocked by Lear. The quantity of attacks did not matter, it was the quality. Compared to Razlay's blistering speed, Lear's sword was slow. He looked like he was moving in slow motion, but each movement was effective, forcing his opponent into even more moves to maintain the attacking momentum. Steady. Only Luo Fei had nothing to say. Anybody who had seen Lear in action would have no doubts. Luo Fei had asked before, once. Why was it that the same move could be so different? Lear had answered casually. Once you had repeated each move millions of times, even a pig would understand. From the age of 3, the Kronos family had subjected Lear to harsh training. A kid wielding a huge sword, ceaselessly cutting, regardless of rain or shine. 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times. There was no end to it. A crazy legend from a crazy family. Either one perished in ambition or reveled in its realization. And the peak of craziness was peace. But who knew of the monster that lurked beneath the peaceful exterior? Ping! With a parry from unbounded sky chains, Razlay's werewolf was beaten away, staggering. Beast-type mecha cores were undoubtedly the most stable, but it had been carelessly beaten aside by the opponent. From start to end, Lear had used the simplest blocks. Unbounded sky chains did not seek to pursue. The sword tips were lowered to the floor. Even his gaze was not directed at his opponent. Manalasuo began to fret. What was Razlay playing at? Was this some charade? Destroy him? But Vincent was not muttering like his comrades. He was completely focused on the unbounded sky chains. A true pro had emerged. How could the solar system have an existence of such caliber? Only one who had trained each move relentlessly thousands of times could make such a high-difficulty fight look effortless. Although his blade was ordinary, it was packed with power. His timing was even more impeccable. Any move had its strong and weak moments, although this was most commonly exposed in all-out blows. But this Lear had even mastered those of normal attacks. But to completely focus on capitalizing on these timing windows required too much effort, and nobody could sustain it for long. Lear made it look innate. Razlay's blood was boiling. Although not much time had passed, he was already beginning to feel fatigued, both in mind and body. This scrawny mech actually had such power. Damn. He could not keep this up for much longer. Finish him, finish him. A woo, the vampiric werewolf howled towards the sky. With a roar of the engines, Razlay was clearly readying himself for the killing blow. No more playing around, the vampiric werewolf moved suddenly. Unbounded sky chains was still waiting quietly. Ground attack, sky attack, flanks. The vampiric werewolf had apparently seized the initiative, full speed attack. Suddenly, the werewolf opened its mouth, shooting lasers. This was the advantage of beast-type mecha, capable of both long and short-range attack. Razlay's accuracy was fairly high, as befitting of Manalasuo's ace. Even at such speeds, he could keep up the damage of his shots. Unbounded sky chains was compelled to maneuver evasively. In that instant, the vampiric werewolf, which had been sprinting at maximum speed, suddenly disappeared. Zhang Shan started, his eyeballs almost popping out. Warp. This Razlay was also a warp ability user, and the distance was much further than what he was capable of. Crucially, he could use it even when moving at high speeds. He was clear that for himself to use the ability, he needed a fairly stable state. This opponent was clearly a cut above him. The vanished vampiric werewolf suddenly appeared in front of unbounded sky chains. The titanium blades had completely captured unbounded sky chains. The lasers had been interference, while this was the real killing move, definitely unfailable. The frenzied claw blades raked downwards, delivering a death blow. Nobody could dodge such an attack. Whoosh, at this moment, something strange happened. The claws raked nothing but air, and unbounded sky chains actually vanished. Could Lear teleport as well? Could it be super speed ability? Unbelievable speed. This was really going crazy. Could Lear actually be a speed-type ability X user? They could only see the outline of a mech. In the next instant, unbounded sky chains reappeared, still at its original position. The vampiric werewolf had stopped. Clang clang clang. The vampiric werewolf had collapsed. It had definitely collapsed. Its head and 4 limbs had been neatly dissected. Only the middle part was left rolling on the floor. The entire arena was silent. What exactly had happened in that instant? On the huge projector screen above, the instant replayed. In the instant that the vampiric werewolf had displaced behind unbounded sky chains had displaced as well, a frightening sideways lurch. This was just the beginning. It closely followed with a 90-degree diagonal movement, at the same time cutting out with the titanium swords. And another shift, and another cut, and another shift. Under slow motion, the moves looked ordinary, but once reverted to normal speed, it was nothing but a blur. Movement, control, timing, an intricately composed symphony. This was not Ability X. The arena was quiet. What training did it take to raise such a monster? Wang Zheng quietly watched the technique, then suddenly laughed. To reach this level, one needed to crawl out of hell a few times. He had personally experienced this before. He had counted himself alone in this, but now he saw that there were others who had been through the same thing. Perhaps one day he would have a real match with Lear. That would be interesting. Lear clearly knew his opponent had the ability to warp, even though Razlay had not used it before. But Lear had his own sources of intelligence, and did not need the military. Round 2, Solar System Federation team win. Is this going to be an upset? Manalasuo down 2-0, you've got to be kidding. Did you get it wrong? I thought so too, but apparently not. Our people conveyed the results. The Solar System Federation team is turning the tables. For real? Is it that Wang Zheng again? No, Wang Zheng hasn't made an appearance yet. I heard they're crushing Manalasuo. Key personnel in the various battle zones had received the news. A strong team like Manalasuo naturally deserved attention, as a potential opponent. When the news first came in, they had thought it was some breaking new battle strategy by Manalasuo, not the news that they were 0-2 behind. Razlay walked out by himself, his legs a little unsteady. In that instant, he had not even been able to retaliate, he had been beaten blind. Back at the gathering platform, Razlay looked towards Lear, but he still refused to even look at him. Such an individual was merely a passing small fry in Lear's life. Lear's face always looked as though he was mocking the world, but now, those that glanced his way were discussing him in whispers. Lear sat back down silently at his seat. Fatty immediately hauled his ass over with drinks, with a free bootlicking on the side. Manalasuo had been beaten 0-2. Things were not looking good. Vincent frowned slightly. The Solar System Federation team's most famous members were Lear and Achilles. They were legends even in Academy X. Although such a performance was unprecedented, it fell neatly within his calculations. This match was a best of 7, and the Solar System was running out of aces. All they had left was Wang Zheng. Although not much was known about his status, Vincent was not overly worried. The odds still remained in their favor. It fell to the Solar System to send out their fighter first in the third round. More people were streaming in, clearly having heard the news. The other battle zones were proceeding predictably. The chances of pulling off an upset in the top 16 contests was low. At this moment, startled cries ensued from the back, and everybody stood up. A few of the strong team's intelligence personnel were left gaping as well. After they had sent out the news, they had anticipated that some teams might send some members to watch the match. But, my God, the Atlantis team was in full attendance. Was this a dream? The Atlantis team had already easily swept their opponents in a 4-0. They had faced no resistance. The team that faced Atlantis had no need to struggle either. This team's strength was unparalleled. They were the hot favorites to take the championship this time around. Perhaps only Aslan and Arbiter could pose a threat, but their chances were not good either. Because this team not only had the unbelievably shining aces Bordia and Asias, who were nicknamed as protected by God himself, but not a single member of the team was lacking either. Atlanteans were best as controlling their emotions. Because of their faith, they were unshakable. To the Atlanteans, they were limitless, unless by their own choice, they were unbeatable. But such a team had actually brought full attendance here, for Manalasuo? Clearly Manalasuo was strong, but they were still not worthy. People were bowing and scraping, because it was not just the members that had come. Atlantis Prince Hao Lin had arrived as well. The little prince, who had human and Atlantean blood, looked more like an Atlantean, although his features were an amalgamation of the two, and irresistibly appealing. Manalasuo's Bowl and Mengao and the rest from Earth stood as well. Although the prince was young, his status was unmeasurably high. Because of the special circumstances, they conceded simple gestures of respect as well. The Atlantis team sat at the extreme back. They were really here to watch the match. Bordia and Asias sat on the left and right of Hao Lin. They were obviously uninterested in the Solar System team, but it had been the prince's orders. But once they saw the score, they were also surprised. The Manalasuo team had always been very strong. No matter how much they had flagged in this iteration, a skinny camel was always bigger than a horse. This was definitely a surprising turn of events. Wang Zheng looked over as well. Catching the eye of the Aslan prince, he smiled. The prince smiled back as well, a friendly person. Wang Zheng had no idea what they were doing here, but the atmosphere was starting to heat up as the news spread. The Atlantis team had personally made an appearance. Were they really here to watch the match? This was surely a joke. The immediate response was disbelief, but it could not have been an error by so many people. Unless this was a huge prank involving actors. The next battle was indeed risky. Nobody was sure of their chances, unless Wang Zheng decided to go. Apparently Wang Zheng had no intentions of fighting in the upper half. His gaze swept past Lai Xin and Zhang Runan, landing on Fatty, who was still busy fawning over Lear. He had not even noticed the Atlantean prince. One must respect the art of bootlicking without being distracted. Third match, Luo Fei, yes. Wait, what? Me again? Luo Fei pointed at himself. He had already lost once previously. It had been embarrassing. How could it have fallen to him again? You see, leader, I sustained an internal injury in the last match, and I'm still, halfway through his excuses. He saw Lear nod, and his tone immediately changed. Ready to fight to the death for the team, he declared with a righteous commitment that inspired reverence. Quite the martyr. Lear understood the meaning of this match. He would put aside their personal differences. He knew that Wang Zheng saw Luo Fei's true strength, and he respected him for that. Wang Jung dared to use his team, unafraid of taking losses or criticism. Such a rival was difficult to Harry, but he admired him for it. He would add a little color to Wang Jung's path. Zhang Shan and the rest were a little nervous. Why would Wang Jung play with fire at such a crucial time? Manalasuo was not like their past opponents, and would leap at the slightest slip-up on their part. Even Manalasuo was not sure how to take it. They had felt it would be Lai Xin, if not Zhang Runan, who took the field, but it was in fact the trash fatty. Was this contempt? Ramses, this match is yours, no quarter? Yes, sir. Ramses stood up. His brow bone was a little dented. He had been hit before in a past practice. Although he had been treated, there was still a noticeable contour, which was very intimidating. But Ramses had the title of preparation mechanist. He was a geek of mech. Seeing his opponent make his way quickly forward, Fatty hastened forward as well, extending his hand forward. Sir, please take care of me, and go easy. Ramses coldly slapped his hand away. Resign early, don't blame me if you die. Ramses readily chose his own mech, Arbiter's Butcher. This was a sniper suited for close battles, definitely requiring a high level of operation. Too bad he was matched up against such a groveling, disgusting fatty. Fighting such an opponent was almost an insult. His fawning form had been seen by everybody. Such a sycophant had actually made his way into the team. He had no idea what the solar system team was thinking. And furthermore, to give battle chances to this guy again and again. The fatty chose the mech that Manalasuo had fielded just prior, Vampiric Werewolf. Manalasuo's expression immediately turned dark. This was a clear insult. Could this lumbering fatty control such an agile mech? The Vampiric Werewolf required bloodthirst. Only a berserk pilot could bring out that potential. To let such a nauseating earthling use it was an insult to the premium mech. At the solar system team's seats, Wang Jung, Lear, and Achilles were calm, but at this time nobody doubted that it was genuine. Regardless of the eventual result, the solar system team had already proven their ability. They had entered the top 32 and could return heads held high. The mech that Fatty drove shuffled forward slowly. The Butcher had already taken its position, waiting for the battle to start. This mech is indeed user-friendly. Good sir from Manalasuo, please teach me well today, Fatty said. Hearing those words, Ramses felt like puking. To meet such a cockroach on such a prestigious and dignified stage. I recommend you surrender immediately, and you can continue to kiss Lear's ass. Otherwise, it will be your life, Ramses taunted. Vampiric Werewolf lurched to its feet comically, extending a claw. Luo Fei's voice issued from the mech, although it seemed a little distorted, as though he was somebody else. 1 minute. Boom, as his words landed, the Vampiric Werewolf immediately shot forward, sneak attack. But Ramses would not fall for the trick. The Butcher's laser guns immediately fired. Close combat lasers would destroy all types of scouts. The Vampiric Werewolf dodged left and right, advancing. Ramses let out a chilling laugh. The laser hummed, colossal matrix point shot. Fatal lock-on. This was one of the killer moves that shooting types employed. Luo Fei was suddenly surrounded by a matrix of lasers that was specially targeted to kill beast-type mecha. But the loping Vampiric Werewolf mech actually executed a high-speed flip, dodging it as though it were nothing unusual. After the flip, its speed did not decrease. At this moment, Ramses started to realize that something was wrong. His pupils dilating to fill the whole eye, the Butcher began using an ability X involving warping. A fatal attack with no weak points. At this moment, they descended into a mode that brooked no interference, completely tunneled in on the target. Either one was sure to die, and their concentration was heightened to the limit. Neither had activated their energy shields. Whoever did so would limit their movements. Time ticked on, second by second. But what was most surprising was not the Butcher's performance, but the Vampiric Werewolf's. Its movements were even more ferocious than Ramses. Perhaps each had their own character. But although Ramses was fearsome, it fell within acceptable boundaries. Luo Fei's Vampiric Werewolf seemed inhuman. At this time, Luo Fei was an animal. The Vampiric Werewolf entered the attack radius. Ability X, weakening. In an instant, the Butcher's movements slowed by just a little bit, and the Vampiric Werewolf pounced. But Ramses was not the preparatory mechanist for nothing. He activated his energy shields without pause, and the opponent's weakening ability did not fully inhibit his movements. That was a strong point of Manalasuo warriors. But the tragedy had just begun. A vampiric werewolf only went fully berserk when it pounced on its prey. No rest until death. The claw blades slashed as though possessed. The air was filled with claw trails. It was more than twice of what Razley had brought. Hesitant people were afraid of the unreasonable. The unreasonable were afraid of the reckless. The reckless were afraid of the insane. Of all the martial arts in the world, only madness was unbreakable. Boom, in the blink of an eye, the energy shield was torn apart, and the vampiric werewolf's claw slashed forward. Boom. Everybody was scared out of their wits. This slash had directly hit the cockpit, and extracted the pilot directly. Woo, the vampiric werewolf let out a possessed howl upon seizing its prey. With a roar of its engine, one more burst would turn Ramses into a puddle of flesh. This was an animal-like attack, incomparably agile. This was the ass-kisser Fatty? Everybody shuddered. Those that had taunted Fatty before felt their necks turn cold. The vampiric werewolf's mouth aimed directly at Ramses. The mouth cannon yawned. Ramses suddenly let out an anguished wail. Manalasuo's members could not resist closing their eyes. This was definitely the most shameful event in Manalasuo's history. Ramses had peed his pants in fear.